Let's stand with
You could come in. Yeah, there you go.
Hello, my name is Bhupendra Ram. Ethnically, I am Indian, but I was born in the Fiji Islands. When I came to the United States when I was 2 years old. 6 months later, I became undocumented. 22 years later, I became undocumented and unafraid. My parents, 4 sisters, and I were granted a tourist visa. Along the way, my parents met a man who apparently knew somebody in INS. He told us that if we give him a lump sum, as soon as we enter the US, he will give us a green card. Well, he did give us a green card, but they were fake. 2 years later, when my parents tried to apply for another job, that's when they discovered our undocumented status. They applied for adjustments and got temporary status to live within the US, but it took them 18 years to get a green card. At that time, I had aged out, and this means that I no longer have a pathway towards citizenship. I didn't let my status stop me from giving back to the community and excelling in school. I enrolled at Cal State Fullerton, and in 2010, I earned my bachelor's degree in business administration, and in 2 weeks, I will start my graduate degree in speech communication back at Cal State Fullerton. When I When I graduated with my bachelor's, I went through a depression that most undocumented students go through. I have a problem being depressed for a long period of time because life is just so amazing and beautiful that what I did is I went on Facebook and I added as many dreamers as I could and attended as many events as I could. I joined various Dream Act organizations, and through the people that I met, I empowered myself and what it means to be an undocumented student. Without the Dream Act, I live in a constant state of worry. My future in the U.S. is not guaranteed. I can be uprooted tomorrow, and I can be separated from my family, friends, and the community. Dreamers are not asking for a handout. We're asking for an earned pathway towards citizenship. We are not criminals. We are hardworking people. My hope is to have the House and Senate come together and listen to the majority of Americans who want the Dream Act, because it is the right choice for America. Thank you.
All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I went for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day. Went to a church yesterday. I stopped along the way. Well, I got down on my bending knee and I began to pray. You know, the preacher digs a call, 'cause he knows I'm gonna stay. He knows I'm gonna stay. I told him so. California dreaming. Oh, somebody help me. I wanna go so bad.
I was born in the Fiji Islands. I don't have much memory of Fiji. My first memories are from my childhood are from the United States.
Well, where I was born, I don't really remember anything. Only for the reason that I did come here to the United States at the age of 3, so at that point I don't recall anything.
We were lucky enough because my dad had a good job in the past. We had tourist visa, and so we didn't have to struggle in crossing the border. like risking our lives and stuff. We just had to cross as any tourist would.
I was 2 years old when I came to the U.S. and I came with my mom. What I remember is like just having to hide in bushes, having to run through the desert at night, having to like climb walls. At one point there was immigration vans or things like that, so we had to hide out for about 2 hours, just kind of like not moving, hiding. It was really scary, right? But I just knew that we just had, I just had to follow my mom and follow this guy.
And so we went back to Peru, and that's when I guess my mom and dad decided that we were going to come here with the intention of staying. And so they just packed up their bags. It was very on the spur decision on their part. And they brought me and my brother and my sister, and we came with a tourist visa, all of us. I'm not sure exactly when our visas expired, but they did. But we had no knowledge of that. Like myself and my siblings, we didn't know anything about immigration. Like to me, the U.S. was still like Disneyland.
I remember my mom, woke us up probably at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. really, really, really like in the middle of the night, and we were dressing, and I was really sad and scared, but I was like helping my sister get ready, just acting that it was so exciting to go to the United States. And so I was doing fine the entire car trip until I saw the plane in the airport. And then it was this huge thing, and then my mom was like, we're going to go in that one. And then, she looked at me and she said like, oh, I'm so proud of you for being so strong. She's like, but I know this is going to be hard. And that's when I started to cry. But I still telling her like, no, but we got to go. I'm going to be okay, and Nikki's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to take care of us, and we did.
So they came when they were children, and they were raised in the United States, and they reached 18, and they were undocumented. They didn't have legal status within the country, which made them ineligible for work, and it made them vulnerable to deportation.
I was 17, so it was my last year of high school, and I was in the process of applying for college. I think I'd already been accepted to UCLA, but here in the United States, you apply for FAFSA, which is Federal Financial Aid, and so nobody ever really thinks about the money issue, I think, until you get to the whole college application process. I know I never had. And so they told me to get the Social Security number, and that's when I went home and I asked my mom for that 9-digit number. And they couldn't protect me anymore from the truth, because that was what had been going on for the longest time. I do remember feeling really confused and like not understanding it immediately, not understanding what that even meant, because I went to my college counselor after that, and he kind of did like a 180 and changed his mind. He told me, well, you can only go to community college, really, that's your only option. So I think through that experience with my counselor, that kind of started the seed of, okay, this really means something big. This means a shift in my life.
Being undocumented definitely affects your emotional being, your psychological being, even your physical, because being undocumented, you're going to be working hard, long hours. You're gonna be doing a tough job. It's gonna affect you physically. It is gonna affect you emotionally because, I mean, you want to keep going. You want to do things that everyone, does. But at the same time, I mean, you have to be realistic. You have to know that you're not gonna be, granted financial aid. You know that as much as you work so hard for, you can't be admitted to the abroad program because you're not. That affects you, knowing that you work so hard for something and not being able to receive recognition.
All these micro parts of life become moments for reminding you and for reinforcing your fundamental illegality in this country, and it becomes it doesn't only become sort of acts or specific acts that block you from fully incorporating in the country, but it also reinforces this type of stigma of illegality in your daily interactions. Every day you're asked for a driver's license for this, or you're excluded from driving, you're excluded from going to university because of your status. All these types of things deprive you of opportunities, but they also reinforce stigma, heavy stigma that you have to bear in your daily lives.
Um, and and it's just the whole fact about not being able to tell specific people. I think that's the one where it gets most of us, where we grew up with somebody, and just that fear of like, I want to tell you but I can't, because the way I was raised or whatever, or because of the fear, of people finding out that I'm undocumented, and then the fear of deportation, right? So even that fact, not being able to talk to friends that we grew up with.
And this has happened to me when, I remember one time going out for dinner, and I wanted to get something to drink, and I showed my consular ID, and I remember the server was like, well, sorry, we don't take this, and I was like, oh, okay, no problem. Like, you just want to keep it, like, just want to ignore it, like, okay, no problem. And I remember one of the girls was like, why don't you have an ID? And I was like, I didn't even know her because she was like a friend of my friend. So I was like, oh, like, you try to think something quick. It's like, oh, I don't have one because, I don't know. And I just told her, like, oh, I'm not from here. She was like, what do you mean? Like, so are you illegal? And it was just so, like, degrading. Like, you're outside, you're trying to go out with your friends for a fun time. And then for someone who doesn't even know you to label you like that, it was horrible.
What didn't help was I was in my public speaking class. I did a presentation on the Dream Act, and I told my professor that I'm undocumented and this is what I'm going to be presenting on. She said, don't tell anyone that you're undocumented because I'll be forced to tell the authorities, which is it was shocking to me, and I didn't know any better, so I was like, okay, I won't tell anyone. But as I'm presenting the speech to my class, there was a lady, blue eyes, fair, blonde hair, sitting right in front of me, not too far away. I had this amazing speech planned, like I knew every word to it, but I just see her shaking her head at me, and it just completely broke me down. I'm like, there's someone who's not, like, it's just like I didn't know I didn't know how to take that. Is she saying that I don't belong? Is she not accepting of the Dream Act? And it's these questions. Like, I'm trying to do this presentation for my grade, but I'm looking internally, trying to figure out what does my identity mean. What is she? Is she shaking her head towards me or the immigration policies, or what is it?
Hearing people talk about the whole immigration issue and using all these negative words, illegal aliens, they should all go back, they're stupid, and then all this negative, crazy talk, not being able to defend ourselves because if we say anything, they're gonna say, well, why do you care? Are you illegal? So having that, right? So not being able to debunk every stereotype that they have.
How is it? I feel like my very existence being here is controversial. Me being here physically, my very existence in this country is a controversial issue. And that's intense, like how do you deal with that? And I think luckily for me, like I've been able to deal with it very well, but I know it's really tough, it's draining because your whole being is controversial. And it's just intense. And it's every day, I feel like every day is a struggle to humanize yourself, to remind yourself that, that you're not a controversy, you're not an issue. You're not something. You're not a political game or a political pawn. That we're human beings.
And then just things, like yoga and taking long walks and just stopping sometimes during the day and walking outside and seeing the sun. Just reminding myself like I exist. I'm here and I can feel things. And so it's a constant struggle, though. It is.
Also, I think for some people, even for me at times, I do feel like giving up. Just feel like, what am I doing all this for? Like, the dream still has not passed. I mean, like, really, what are you going to do?
I think most importantly, like, it's not like always in a way putting my dreams and goals on hold. Being undocumented, not being sure whether or not I was going to be able to work, right? That was never certain. Not knowing whether one day I would be here and the other day I would be arrested or detained by immigration. So that was always an issue of being undocumented and just not knowing when I would be a full member accepted by society.
The biggest thing about being undocumented emotionally is that I think sometimes us as ourselves, we forget that we're also human beings, right? And that we need to enjoy life and enjoy every bit of it and have fun and be happy and do things that we normal people do, like.
So don't worry if it gets all dirty, okay? Oh, okay. So, get ready. Everyone, if you don't all know, Bupandra's turning 25 today. Yeah! That's a quarter of a century. DJ, can you cut the music completely? Okay. So, fire right now. Are we ready to sing happy birthday? Yeah! Is that mine? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pedro. Happy birthday to you. Love, food. Make a wish. Mesa que más aplauda. Mesa que más aplauda. Mesa que más aplauda. Le mando la niña. Mesa que más aplauda. Mesa que más aplauda. Le mando la niña. Los poblanos, los chilenos. Me encontré con él, es así como es raro, pero me cayó bien. Me dijo, voy a congregarte, espero que te llegaras, no me espera ya. Me dijo con certeza que no hay más emoción que romper un sombrero, disparar un cañón. Tanta varita de un jinete como malandra, sus fuerzas de payaso, los veo. Les dijo, ven,
ven, ven animalito, ven, ven y sígueme, verás lo que vas a aprender. Donde estoy conmigo participo, bonito, mientras yo soy payaso de rodeo.
So, following the 1970s, what we start to see is not only that the population starts to change, the migrant population, especially from Latin America, starts to change, becoming much more permanent and much more family oriented, but it also becomes an undocumented population, primarily because of the fact that the 1965 law provides very few visa allocations to Mexicans, and this created a situation in which the largest stream of migrants to the United States was also proportionally given the lowest amount of visas. Um, so this created a very big problem, and before that there wasn't this problem because of the fact that there wasn't a quota-based system. The quota-based system introduced basically the line between legality and illegality, and the fact that many people couldn't get a visa because there were so few offered, rendered huge populations illegal.
And of course there were sort of economic advantages to keeping the migrants undocumented. This is part of the history of industrial capitalism, that it's always useful to have a homeless, unemployed labor reservoir nearby for sudden expansions in production and so on. To have them available to work for cheap labor, as cheap labor.
Base of the Los Angeles economy starts to become very much dependent on their labor to produce manufactured products coming from Los Angeles, but also to perform vital service functions throughout the city and throughout the county, really. And this is a very sort of strange situation in which you have a very large proportion of the labor force that's completely dependent on a population that is completely rightless, or at least their rights aren't recognized by their fellow citizens and by fellow residents in the cities.
But I do remember the day that hit me, and the day that I knew how much it would affect me being undocumented. So then, May 7th, 2008, Wednesday morning, I was about 5, 6 in the morning. That's when immigration pretty much went to the apartments, and they just started knocking on the front door really, really loud. They were pretty much pounding. So my cousin opened the door. They came inside. So in the living room, it was my cousin, my brother, and myself. We were sleeping outside. We all woke up. I kind of woke up a little bit when they were coming in. My cousin came up to me and said, "Hey, it's immigration. Like, get up." Like, then when I heard immigration, that's when I completely woke up, and I was just I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to do. Eventually, they went to both the rooms. They got my brother out and his girlfriend out. So then it was all of us outside, and they started questioning us. So we're looking for so and so. Where are they? And it was my parents' name. My mom's in the room. My dad's already at work. They started questioning us. They asked us for our IDs. My cousin, who was a citizen, he showed them his California ID or driver's license. They came to me, and I was looking into immigration's eyes, and at that time I wasn't as open as I am now. I am not knowledgeable as I am now at that time. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I was just in shock. Um, I was mumbling a lot. Where they would ask me, "Let me see your ID," and I was just like, I don't, and they asked me, "Do you speak English?" And I was like, "Yeah, I speak English." I don't know what to tell you. You're immigration. You're the people that want to take me away. I don't know how to deal with the situation. Of course, I didn't say that because again, I didn't want to say things I shouldn't have said. So my brother showed him his ID. My brother showed his consulate ID. So from Mexico. So that's what my brother showed, and I was thinking, maybe should I show him mine? But I didn't, and they asked me if once we showed him ID, and once my brother showed him that ID, they asked us if we were citizens, if we didn't have any papers, and at that time I was like, oh, shit, like I didn't know what to say. I was just, and my brother was like, Adrian, shut up, don't say anything. And pretty much one of the officers or one of the agents told my brother to shut up because they're not talking to him, they're talking to me. So eventually, they went into the room where my mom was at, and they brought her out. She stepped out, and they said, this is who we are. We're here for you because you failed to leave the country when we told you to. Put on some slippers or some clothes, and then we got to take you. So as she went back inside the room to get her stuff, I had asked him, hey, so, where are you going to take her? Can we see her? What's going on? Like, yeah, you can see her. Like, where is it? So he just kept looking at me. He's like, well, are you going to get something to write with? Like, oh, damn, okay. So I wrote it down and everything. My mom came out, and she was only able to get her slippers, and she was still in her pajamas. So they had told her everything, what was going on, and we were freaking out. We didn't know what to do. We were just confused, and we were scared. So then my mom was the one that was calm. She was the one who was telling us that everything's gonna be okay, to relax, that she's gonna go ahead and take care of this. But of course, we knew what was gonna happen. That things are not gonna be okay. Immigration's in our home. They're taking my mom away. How can things be okay? But of course, because my mom didn't want us to get too scared, that's what she was telling us, and it did work. She was very, very calm. But although that there was only one exit, and the exit that we had, which is the front door, was pretty much blocked by these big immigration agents. And although my mom was very, very calm, she was in her pajamas, she was in her slippers. They still managed to put her in handcuffs. Right, so we were thinking, well, what the hell's going? Do you really have to put my mom in handcuffs? Is that really necessary? And for me, I understand his procedures, but she's not being hysterical. She's not screaming. She's not going crazy. She's calm. She's calmer than her kids. How can you do this to my mom? When you have these huge guys blocking the entrance. My mom can't get away from them. Are you kidding me? One of them could keep my mom from moving. So how are you gonna do this to my mom? No, in front of my younger brother. What's wrong with you people? So then they put her in handcuffs. They took her outside, and then we followed because we were, what the hell? How, don't take my mom. What the fuck's wrong with you? They were outside, and then we had opened the door, and one of the guys, he told us, you have to go back inside the house. I'm like, well, we can't say goodbye to my mom. I can't hug my mom. Why? I want to say goodbye to my mom. No, you have to go back inside now. So then we went inside. We closed the door. We waited a couple minutes, and then we opened the door again, and then we saw my mom get put inside the van. And then from there, they just drove away. So at that time, we were thinking that the guy who told us to go back inside, that he was just being an asshole, and he was just being a jerk. But looking back out at it now, is that he was pretty much protecting us. Because by law, if we would have stepped outside, especially at that time, they knew, or they had a feeling that we were also undocumented. They could have arrested us, and they could have taken us away too. No, but the fact that we were inside the apartment, because as private property, they weren't, by law, they couldn't take us away. Technically, they could have, because they could have made up an excuse, a reason for them to take us. But by law, they couldn't take us so as long as we were inside. So the guy was telling us, like, you better go inside, or else we're gonna arrest you too and take you away. Right. So they took my mom away, and at that point we were just in shock. We honestly didn't know what to do other than make a bunch of phone calls. We called my dad, who was already at work. We told him what was going on. Hey, Dad, they have my mom. Like, oh, immigration. They came this morning. They just left. They're taking her to Santana to pretty much deport her. So we gave him the location of where it's at. Well, actually, he already knew. So we just told him it was in Santana, and he, thinking about my mom and not wanting her to be alone, he turned himself in. So he drove out of work. He just left work, and he turned himself in. Again, because he didn't want to leave my mom alone. But what we didn't know is that they separate females and males. They put all males in one room and all females in another room. So even then, my mom was still alone. But of course, we didn't know that, and my dad just wanted to be with my mom. And the same evening, my parents were already in TJ. So since then, my brother and I and my sister, so all three of us who are undocumented, we haven't seen my parents other than through Skype.
We had the National Day of Action for the Coming Out, right? And this was the first time that it was kind of like official, where undocumented students said, we're officially coming out and sharing our stories to the media, to our friends, to the public, and saying that we're no longer going to stay in the shadows. This is the first time that we started wearing the shirts, I am undocumented, which you can buy today for $15. It was the first time that we said, like, we would no longer be in the shadows. We're going to speak. We're going to share our stories, and we're going to change the movement from now on.
So the group of the Dreamers, self-described group of the Dreamers, is political in the sense that they created an identity, an idea of what they are. They are fighting for the passage of the Federal Dream Act. They created a certain language, symbols, the name of the Dreamers. And they developed a strategy for mobilizing to have their voices heard.
Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them, we are the dreamers, the mighty, mighty dreamers, fighting for justice, and our education, yeah.
And right now, we have, there's a campaign going to end Graciela's deportation. A little about her. Graciela came to the U.S. in 1996 with her mom. Within a year, she was able to speak English. She made new friends, participated in school activities, and started excelling. When she was just 16, her mom had to go back to Mexico to take care of her sick dad. But thankfully, Graciela, through the support of her aunt, her family, and her community, she was able to live with her aunt and be able to start working part-time and continue going to school at the same time. So even though she had to face all these struggles and all these setbacks, she still persevered and she stayed in school. But Graciela is facing deportation and needs all of our help.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlos Sama, also a part of the Dream Team LA. I've been part of Dream Team LA for a while. I've also been part of the Orange County Dream Team. But I wanted to invite a special friend, a special dreamer, but also a family member of Graciela. She's going to share a little bit of how Graciela is doing. She's been in deportation procedures for over 2 weeks now. And we want to make sure that we stop her deportation and she stays here where she finds her home. So I'm going to invite Norma to share a little bit of how Graciela is doing. So let's give it a hand.
Hi, my name is Norma. Graciela is my cousin. As Eric said already, she came very young. She was only 9 years old. And right now she's doing, she's trying to be very strong, but she's in shock. Sometimes when I talk to her, she said that, I can't believe that I'm being treated like a criminal. That's how she's feeling right now. Like she's, in jail, in detention, and she's just devastated for it. So, she was working full-time, being a student full-time. Her dream is to be a sociology instructor in a community college or university level. So she wants to give back to her country because she believes that this is her country. And she just wants to get as much support as we can get to help her to come back to Los Angeles and try to fight for a case. Because she believes she deserves to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for everything you guys have been doing and you haven't. But I know I'm going to get through it because I'm a dreamer and I know that dreamers never give up. Thank you.
Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Undocumented! Unafraid! Hang in there.
They first got a hold of me around 5:30 p.m. and they didn't put me in detention until 3 a.m. in the morning. So I was there like the whole day, just there in the office waiting to see what's gonna happen with your future. So after then they detained me. I was finally detained at 3:30 in the morning. They had to do a physical test, to make sure that you didn't have any diseases. They strip you down from your clothing, your identity, pretty much. They gave you a number. They gave you an ID with your picture, with your alien number, and they took me to a cell. Where I was, there was women and men, but they kept them separate. So, I came in at 3 in the morning. I just came in and slept. Being in Miami, thousands of miles away from home. My family had already knew that I had gotten detained because I had managed to call them. So, I was in detention for 3 weeks. Being there was really hard, 3 weeks of anguish, of sorrow. You don't know what's gonna happen with your future. Me blaming myself for even going, making a foolish mistake, making a foolish decision. Just being there, not knowing what's gonna happen with you. Not knowing if you're gonna still continue in school. To me, that was like my most prized possession, education. I didn't know if they were gonna send me back. I didn't know what was gonna happen. Being there and being in an environment where people were mistreated, people that didn't speak English were mistreated, were ignored, they were neglected. You were treated like a number, They the staff was not all that friendly. If you were sick or you felt sick, you had to make a request, and it probably wouldn't take it probably take like a week until you see a doctor. So I mean, if you're really sick, you have to wait for a week to see the doctor, and by then you'll probably be feeling better or worse. A lot of the women there were they suffer from diseases already. A lot of women had problems with their menstrual cycle. A lot of women had stopped menstruating. A lot of women kept bleeding nonstop. I know one of my roommates was bleeding for like 12 days nonstop, and she didn't speak English. I had to go and write the request for her. Nothing. Like a week went by, nothing. Like she was actually deported back to Honduras, and she was still, menstruating heavily. It was a horrible experience to know that, you're locked up for not committing anything. Just the fact that you have a dream, that you have goals.
I started becoming very, very involved within the immigrant rights movement, specifically the students, the Dream Act movement. I started meeting different people who do advocate for immigrant rights. I started learning about different issues that affect people, different communities that are being affected, different people, communities that are being oppressed. So then I started becoming more knowledgeable about the immigration issue, about politics, how everything works, how things affect me.
A lot of it is empowerment. I'm sure you're hearing empowerment a lot, and that's what it really is. It's about developing your community building, healing through people within the same struggle, understanding what it really means to be undocumented, and we could only get that with the people who are within the Dream Act movement.
Now we've changed this label of being undocumented to an empowering term of like undocumented and unafraid, and that was intentional, right? Like we did that intentionally. It's like in Chicano history here, like that word used to be like a degrading word, like a bad word basically, and for us we could never really say openly we're undocumented, so it was also like a bad thing. So to then say like undocumented and unafraid, it was like intentionally to empower ourselves, because 10 years ago we would not be saying that at all.
The big moment for me was at UCLA and becoming undocumented and unafraid, right? Like really embracing what it meant to be undocumented, right? And that happened at UCLA. Just being around other people who were organizing around their identity. Because, for me, I was organized around educational access, but never around my identity as a human being. Like, I'm a human being. I have rights, and I deserve those rights. But I deserve to be treated like a human being,
Because it's highlighted the positives in my life a lot more, right? Like, I've been able to travel to 15 states in America because I'm undocumented primarily. And yeah, it's not traveling abroad, but man, states within this country can feel like a different world.
But really it was at UCLA, just being around a lot of undocumented students, that I realized the power in our identities, the power that we have. We're powerless in a lot of sense of being undocumented. We can't do a lot of stuff. But just seeing how they had transformed, or were beginning to transform what it meant to be undocumented as something powerful. When you could stand up there and say, I'm undocumented and this is my story. And that being a tool and being powerful for me is really when I embraced it.
I've been able to be more than okay, be proud of being undocumented. If somebody has a problem with that, they don't know enough of it. And so I need to do my best to educate, right? So that's not only the case for anti-immigrant folks or for people at marches, but it's everywhere I go. Because there's no skin color or sign on my forehead that says I'm undocumented, and for me to see people's reactions based off of that, then I have to do my best to just kind of say it and see people's reactions off of that.
I usually play this with kids and we watch them like zombies and they get scared.
Ya vienen a matar, vienen con su guerra a robar la libertad, vienen con la tierra. vienen a saquear. Todos para afuera, pero vamos a luchar. ¡Hey! ¡Resistencia! ¡Resistencia! ¡Del mundo! ¿Qué vamos a hacer cuando se escuchen los tanques rodeando y las metrallas sonando y los niños gritando? ¿Qué vamos a hacer con esos malditos soldados que vienen a matar inocentes? Afuera con los criminales de la guerra. Afuera con los criminales de la tierra. Afuera con los criminales de la guerra. Con los criminales de la guerra.
And then there's a last case from a Saldana student who she was deported. So the idea was to have a campaign, or if we could have a campaign to bring her back.
And just lastly, I don't know if you mentioned Graciela, did you?
Oh no, I did not.
So she was right, like she was also another case that we carried on, right, and that was also in help with Gabby and stuff in Florida, but we really did a lot of work here to pass on the word, to get the petition signed, to make the cause happen.
I was released in September 30th, and my first court is next week, and I already hired a different attorney because the one I had was back in Miami, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm placed in deportation proceedings, which is pretty much saying like I can still be deported. So my lawyer has to fight and has to show proof that in fact I am going to school, that I have a good record, that I'm DREAM Act, eligible, and try to cancel my deportation.
Some of the detailed LA members know that I was actually detained about a month ago, and I was under ICE custody for 3 weeks. And I'm just here. They actually did release me. The fact that I'm going to school and that I had no record helped me a lot. But I'm here living proof that anything can happen, and I'm here to fight for the cause. And I'm not going to stop, and I'm not going to stop just not only for me, but for all the dreamers out there who have dreams and who are eventually going to go ahead and achieve those.
We are DREAM students and allies. We are undocumented, unafraid. We are asking President Obama to stop our deportations because we are not criminals. We are students, we are human beings, we are people just like you, and we need your support now. Obama has supported more people than ever, any other administration. We need to stop the separation of families, and we need him to pass administrative relief, which he has the power to do, to stop the deportations of dreamers now.
So the admin relief campaign that we've been really leading here as Dream Team LA is basically pushing the U.S. government to issue some sort of relief, so some sort of like legal status for undocumented students as we wait for them to get their act together on immigration.
The fact that our status does not define us, our immigration status does not define any human being. So when I say undocumented, you say and unafraid. Ready? Undocumented!
Unafraid!
Undocumented!
Unafraid!
Undocumented!
Unafraid!
There you go. Woo! Okay. So everywhere we go, people wanna know.
People wanna know
Who we are. So we tell them. We are the dreamers.
We are the dreamers.
The mighty, mighty dream.
So it's basically asking, for DREAM Act eligible students, so students who would qualify for the DREAM Act, to be granted, a stay, so for it to be said that we're not deportable, and also granted work authorization. So in the meantime that we're here, we could be working.
Okay. Oh, what else do we want?
Admin relief.
And when do we want it?
Now.
What else do we want?
Admin relief.
And when do we want it?
Now.
Yeah.
that was all. That's all we were asking, you know, and so we started formulating this campaign for administrative relief. And we knew it was gonna be hard, but at the end, we ended up feeling like even if it does not happen, like we cannot hold this administration accountable for what's going on. More families are being deported, more anti-immigrant laws are happening in this country. There's just no way we're gonna sit back and watch it happen without putting some pressure on this administration to do one thing, very minimal thing, that could bring some relief to these families. So we did.
Undocumented! 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 Make some noise!
One of the strategies of the campaign was to really go after ICE officials, so the immigration customs enforcement officers who are in charge of, ensuring that people who don't have crimes, or who really don't have any prior convictions, their role is to ensure that those people are not deported based on a policy that a memo Obama gave out, right? Basically, this is not happening, right? So one of the strategies was going into these ICE offices and, having a sit-in and saying that we're undocumented and risking arrest to pressure ICE really to do its job, right? To really follow the guidelines and to really follow the discretion that they're supposed to follow. So I was one of the students that sat in the ICE office here in Los Angeles.
In the civil disobedience that I did participate, along with 4 other people, that we went into the offices of immigration. And this was in downtown LA, where it was the actual offices. We wanted to meet with Deborah Workina, which she's the chief executive prosecutor, which she's a person that pretty much says, yes, you're going to get deported, or no, you won't get deported. So she's the person that has the last say. The person, not necessarily her, but the person that pretty much prevented my parents from getting the residency.
So we chose the immigration court because that is where people go for their last hearing. So they go into that court and they either leave with a work permit or they leave with a deportation order. And we walked in, we were dressed as if we were going to go to immigration court, so we were dressed very nice, and underneath our clothes we had our shirts that said, I am undocumented. So we walked in, kind of like, very incognito, we're just going to go up to the 6th floor. So as we walked in, there was a group of about 150 people waiting at another location really close. So as soon as we walked in, those people walked over, they marched, and they took over the lobby of the building and also outside. So for us, when we got up in the elevator, you get up, you get out, and the first thing you see is this big Immigration's Customs Enforcement, plaque. It's huge. It's ICE, and for us, it's like, as immigrants, you're supposed to be afraid of ICE, There's certain people that could deport you, and there's people that could incarcerate you. So, we walked in, we said, we're here, this is my name, I'm undocumented, my name is Nancy, I'm undocumented, I'm unafraid, and I'm here to demand admin relief now. Right now, I want you to say that I will not be deported, and I want you to grant me a work authorization. So all of us said that, and then we sat in, so we locked arms and we sat in the office.
We went in there and we sat down, and then we said we delivered this legal memo that explained, legally how the president could do this. We believe that he could, and that we wouldn't leave until we talked to their chief prosecutor.
The beautiful part was, as soon as we sat down and we locked arms, it was kind of like, okay, we're here, we did this, right? And as soon as we did that, the elevator doors opened, and we just heard the chants, the rallies, the drums, the bullhorn of the rally happening downstairs. And we were on the 6th floor. So from the 6th floor of the building, we felt the energy and the noise and the sounds of the rally happening downstairs. And that was the most amazing part, because, all of us, as soon as that happened, we looked at each other and we were just kind of like, okay, they're inside the building. So we were able to really disrupt the whole place. that, we were actually arrested by LAPD, but the DHS did show up, so the U.S. Marshals were there. So outside there was immigration trucks, immigration vans, and so Nathan and I were taken to the women's jail in South LA. So the police officers that were driving us, as they were driving us to the prison, they looked at our shirts and they were just they asked us you know that you're gonna be deported, right? We have to deport all people that are undocumented, and we're like, well, that's kind of the policy that we're questioning, because you're not supposed to be doing that, right? So we had this amazing conversation with the police officers who told us that they didn't agree with the fact that LAPD had to work with the Department of Homeland Security, because for them, they're telling us, they're like, we grew up in LA, we grew up around immigrants, we grew up around and for them, they just saw us as hardworking people, and they were both white, which is interesting, right? And they were just kind of really scared for us. They were just like, they're gonna turn you over to ICE, and for us, we were like, that's kind of the point, right? Because they're not supposed to be doing that. We're here to challenge that, and they were just so amazed at the fact that we would put ourselves at risk.
Going and supporting the students that are at the LAPD headquarters, okay? You guys look beautiful.
To be in solidarity with Nady and the other students who put their bodies on the line today. Nady is a person who's dedicated her life to the movement and to justice, not just for DREAM students, but for all working people and people here. And she's extremely brave today, and we're going to be standing here with her, and we're going to be with her until all of the deportation stops, until we get justice. Yeah!
And then being in jail with other women, that was another reaffirmation, we do need to think about the larger picture, and more we put against each other, that we have to recognize the beauty within us, because that's that one thing they cannot take away from us. It's our own spirits and our own hope. They could put me in jail, and they did, but they can't take away who I am. Yeah.
It's just one of those, it gave me a boost of energy, and it gave me a confirmation that what I was doing, it was the right thing to do, because it was not for me, it was for everybody. It was for all of us. I think we were there for about 4 hours or so, and then finally they called our names saying, you're going out, you're being released.
Make us worried. Gracias. Of course. Just wait for time.
I felt liberated. I felt, because I had seen so many people get arrested before, and me always being so reaffirming, this is the right thing, you're gonna be okay. And of course, every single time we took care of them, but this time it was gonna be the other way. I had to trust our team, everybody outside, and I wasn't gonna be the one running around talking to the lawyers or figuring out, how everyone's doing. So it was multiple levels. At a personal level, I felt really liberated. I was worried about my mom, mostly because she was really sad and worried, but she was also very proud too, and I knew that.
It was, kind of coming to that undocumented and afraid realization, right? That this is something powerful, and I'm doing something powerful. And it's because I'm undocumented that this action is powerful, right? And I was just I was so excited. I was really excited because I knew that it was gonna lead to something big.
Yeah. So you guys want to share some words?
Yeah.
But not in this. Oh, no, they're out already. Aquí para la. They're out. Yeah.
We were fine. I mean, I can only speak for Nancy and myself, but we were fine and there was fine. They were really nice. We got to educate a lot of people in there for sure about.
We got punked for our lunch.
We got punked for their food.
How?
Because other people were hungry in there too. But it was great. The action itself was great. I think we were really successful. Just as a report, I'm sure you guys already know this, but we were able to meet with Deborah working now, and she's the ICE chief prosecutor, and we told her our stories. You know, Pancho, I think, really got to her, like, to the heart, you know, like, he really spoke to her from the heart, and that was so important and, like, so special to witness that. But we told her what's up, you know. She was like, well, have you guys even read the memo? We're like, yes, we have. Read our memo, you know. And it was good. She put, you know, she emailed both Napolitano, but also we just heard that she also emailed John Morton, which is the guy that wrote the memo. And so DC knows what's going on for sure. I don't think we have gotten a response, but they know that we were there. The U.S. Marshals were there, but they didn't arrest us. It was LAPD. So the feds were there, but they didn't get involved. It was fine. We were able to even negotiate for them to let us out through the front so you all could see us. So that was part of the ask, so that you guys could see that we were okay. It was beautiful. I don't know what else to say, but just, it was great.
And then coming out was like, oh my god, that was like the best thing ever. Like fucking badass. Right? It's like, I saw Jonathan's like, oh, and like pointing when we were coming out of the elevator. I'm like, oh, like, that's so cool. And like, it was just beautiful. Like, I wanted to chant, but I was like, I was too happy to see all you there. I was like, can you let go of this? I could like take pictures and stuff.
Take all my money away, so can anybody buy me food?
And they took our food. You almost be hungry. We were fed, but then half of our food we gave. We got punned. You got punned.
And they literally go like,
give me your food. We went into the, are you gonna eat them? Like, give it to me. Okay. I'm gonna fight you up. I'm fine confronting ice, but I don't want like, you can have my sandwiches. We had, like, Russell and Bridget, they came to visit us, so that we went, and, you know, where you go, we get the visits, get on the phone, and then we were done with the conversation, so, you know, my thing is, like, we're done, take us back, you know? We were there just like, excuse me, hello, we're done, I'm like, Navy. So they're waiting, and they was like, why are they coming? We're, like, done with our visit, like, really impatient. I'm like, Navy. Because the way they see this is just, like, whatever, like, these people don't matter, you know? So it's like, no, like, you are very, we are not gonna take this attitude. So I was all like, we're done. And they wouldn't listen. Finally, I gave up, and then all of a sudden, I see Victor Gordo. He's a city council of Pasadena, and he knows my parents and my family. He knows me, and he happens to be the union lawyer for the police division there. So he's walking out, and I was like, I just waved. I was in shock too. And then he looks, he just had this, he's like, what happened? He goes around, gets into the phone, he's like, what did you do? And I just went like this. He just went like this.
So as a result of the action, we were able to get a meeting with Cecilia Munoz, who is the chief advisor to President Obama on immigration. So it's a huge deal, right? It's literally when President Obama needs advice on immigration, he calls her. You know, I'm sure he calls other people, but he calls her too.
So they went to go talk to Cecilia Munoz. So they had the conversation with her. Hey, this is what you can do, and this is, you know, this is a letter from people that used to work for INS, I believe it was, and people who, lawyers, attorneys. You know, we had an extensive research and seen different ways that Obama can go about providing administrative release. And this is a letter saying you can, and this is how you can go about it.
We thought it was just going to be a meeting with Cecilia Munoz. So we met at a church across the street from the White House. You know, so we walked from the offices of United We Dream to the church, and it was crazy because I had never been to D.C. And as I'm walking, I see the White House. Like, that is where the president lives. That's where, you know, that's like the representation of our democracy, you know. So for me, it was interesting that, you know, like, haven't gotten that far, right? Like, you know, we're meeting with one of the chief advisors for the president. So we went into the room. It was actually all of Cecilia Muñoz's cabinet. So the meeting was actually very, very, it was very heartbreaking because although we were there with key points, you know, like, you know, Cecilia told me, she's like, Nancy, the president can't do this. There's no way that he could pass an executive order, you know. And I had my memo, and I was like, Cecilia, like, here's a memo that we have from our attorneys. Like, can you at least have the White House legal department look at this? These are 15 ways the president can't take action. So we know that it's not because he doesn't want to take action. No, we know it's because he doesn't want to take action. You know, he can, but he doesn't, and he doesn't have the political will to do so. So we're gonna continue pressuring him until he does.
So you will no longer deport any more of my family members, nor will you see the pain and devastation we felt when you forcefully separated my family. I'm here to tell you that I am taking a stand against your laws that dehumanizes not only the immigrant communities, but also those narrow-minded individuals who follow your actions because of the fear you ingrain in their minds and hearts. A fear we should not have within. Every day you take pride believing that I am scared and intimidated by those words written down on your fancy paper, words that you refer to as land of the law. Laws that at one point did in fact silence my voice, a voice meant to chant money for jobs and education, not for racist deportations. With my powerful voice fueled by the beautiful energy of the people from this room, with my head held up high, and I look into your eyes, and this is me telling you, you do not frighten me.
I claim this land in the name of da-da-da. This land is mine, and this land is yours. I will chop this tree and pierce the earth, creating borders to claim it first. I will chop this tree and pierce the earth, creating borders to claim it first. How can you claim what gives you life? You take what you see, yet you have no right. How can you claim what gives you life? You take what you see. Do you have that right? I have loved you all for centuries and given you the air you breathe. And still you want more. It's okay to take, okay to want. I'd appreciate a thank you thought. Please learn when to stop. How can you claim what gives you life? You take what you see, yet you have no right. How can you claim what gives you life? You take what you see. Do you have that right? Creating the lines to criminalize those labeled as wrong.
Good afternoon, everybody. This morning, Secretary Napolitano announced new actions my administration will take to mend our nation's immigration policy, to make it more fair, more efficient, and more just, specifically for certain young people, sometimes called dreamers. Now, these are young people who study in our schools, they play in our neighborhoods, they're friends with our kids, they pledge allegiance to our flag. They are Americans in their heart, in their minds, in every single way but one, on paper. They were brought to this country by their parents, sometimes even as infants, and often have no idea that they're undocumented until they apply for a job or a driver's license or a college scholarship. Put yourself in their shoes. Imagine you've done everything right your entire life. Studied hard, worked hard, maybe even graduated at the top of your class, only to suddenly face the threat of deportation to a country that you know nothing about, with a language that you may not even speak. Effective immediately, the Department of Homeland Security is taking steps to lift the shadow of deportation from these young people. Over the next few months, eligible individuals who do not present a risk to national security or public safety will be able to request temporary relief from deportation proceedings and apply for work authorization. Now, let's be clear, this is not amnesty, this is not immunity. This is not a path to citizenship. It's not a permanent fix. This is a temporary stopgap measure that lets us focus our resources wisely while giving a degree of relief and hope to talented, driven, patriotic young people.
Los soldados ya vienen a matar, vienen con su guerra a robar la libertad, vienen por la tierra, vienen a saquear, todos para afuera, pero vamos a luchar. ¡Hey! Resistencia de la gente, resistencia del mundo. ¡Hey, hey, 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 hey! ¡Hey, hey, 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 hey! ¿Qué vamos a hacer cuando se escuchen los tanques rodeando y las metrallas sonando y los niños gritando? ¿Qué vamos a hacer con esos malditos administradores de la muerte? Hey, 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 hey. Vamos a luchar cuando vienen a matar. Hey, 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 hey. Vamos a luchar cuando vienen a matar. Hey, 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 hey. Vamos a luchar cuando vienen a matar. Hey, 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 hey. Vamos a luchar cuando vienen a matar.